Hi, everybody, and thanks for tuning in to episode 112 of the Run the Hills podcast. Another busy show. Eddie and I have a catch up. We chat with David Starley and Jasmine from the Green Runners, and Trish is back. The Run the Hills podcast is sponsored by Chia Charge. I think it's a good time to remind our listeners, Eddie, that Chia Charge give 1% back to the planet, and that's not just profit, that is turnover. So that's very generous, actually. And also they do like a recycling initiative. So if you go onto their website, click on the sustainability tab for more information of how to recycle your old Chia Charge packaging. I'd like to say that was one take, but it was two takes, that intro.
Nearly one take. It was nearly one take. And as we talk, I'm hoping some Chia Charge, because I haven't got any. I'm
wow.
depleted of Chia Charge energy. I'm hoping some is being driven by Colonel Sutton to France for the half-term. Yeah, it feels like half-term visit. But I'm hoping that the Colonel Sutton mobile is full of Chia Charge.
So you don't know if any's turned up?
Chia Charge, PG Tips, and a little granny. Just a face popping up with just PG Tips boxes all around her. No, I don't know. I never said anything. I forgot to tell Dad. Dad will just know that any packages, I think he'll just know that any packages have arrived, that so many have arrived now.
They'll just start snacking on them all that last time.
Making little holes, keyhole surgery, and pulling them out of boxes. Anyway, how you doing? What you been doing? Let's get you first, because I'm worried Gary's not going to make it through this podcast.
Yeah, I wish I've got this standing desk and I can't actually make it a sitting desk.
Just said to Gary, why don't you sit down? Because he said, feeling a bit dizzy. He said, I don't know how to work the desk. Well, that's ridiculous.
When we put this out will be Friday, so it's all out of date.
You might be, it's all over.
Oh, wow. I'm hoping going to the lakes this weekend, so I want to improve. But yeah, it's Tuesday now, and Monday evening, I'm a bit snivelly, but I don't think it's that. I just picked up a bug, and I all of a sudden just was feeling cold, shivery, so I had my little woolly poncho with my hood up. I didn't even finish my dinner, Eddie.
What an image.
I know. But I took myself up to bed super early, like about 9 o'clock, which is early for me. And I had a dreadful night's sleep. The last thing I needed in the morning was my watch telling me my recovery is reduced or something, poor night's sleep. I don't know what it is. I am feeling better. At least I can eat now. My appetite's back. But when I couldn't finish my dinner last night, macaroni cheese. I love macaroni cheese.
Oh my gosh, I love macaroni cheese too.
But that was a big red flag when I left food. I probably about a handful of times in my whole life I've not finished a meal.
I think it's the worst bit about being ill, isn't it? Is when you lose your appetite. Because it's the reason for living is the next meal.
Yeah. But I just, you just look at the food and stuff that you really, really enjoy normally, and you're like, no, I just don't want to touch that. But yeah, I am feeling better, so hopefully. But I'll treat myself to a little snooze in the afternoon after we're done, Eddie, I think. But as far as my running's concerned, went to Jasmine. That was awesome. I've never been to Jasmine. People who know Newcastle, Jasmine's such a lovely part of Newcastle. It's like it's Victorian architecture, this lovely Dean. They're very... I think it's safe to say it's an affluent part of Newcastle. There's not many. It's funny, I was talking to my friends on Sunday. There's not many places I go to where there's an actual cheese shop and the economy can support a cheese shop. So we have butchers.
Yeah, Gary, you could pop round to Morzine.
Oh, wow, yeah. But yeah, Jez was really nice, and we stumbled across a farmer's market, so that was good. Just an all-round good day. But Jasmine Dean park run is pretty much a mile uphill, and then you do a loop, a large loop and a small loop of these fails, then you go the mile downhill. So not one. I don't know what they do on an icy winter's.
Oh.
Yeah. But it was good.
Happened a lot in Newcastle. They just get on with it. Probably they're all in their vests, so just get on with it. Slide down it.
It's true. Yeah, just get a little bin liner and go sliding down it. But yeah, awesome. I had a really good day. It wasn't a particularly fast time, but that's probably more the course. I had some vegan sausage rolls, which was awesome, and that was timely. All these farmers markets have some wonderful produce, and it was very topical with our recent guests. I thought, bit less meat, Gary. But the week-wise, 80 miles, 12,000 feet of vert. So I'm getting the numbers in the right direction. Two weighted hikes. It was good. Yeah, really. And especially for where we live in the weighted hikes are what are nailing it. And because it feels like that's a new thing and I'm back out with the poles, I really, really enjoyed it. Really, really enjoyed it.
You are literally just cloning yourself into me. I listened back last week. I'm like, it's just copying. It's copying.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I do kind of respect what you do, so I'll
What do they say? Flattery is the, what is it? Something is flattery is the, what I always try and say it to the kids, something like, if you
when you copy it, it's the best form of flattery. Yeah.
That's it. Anyway.
But then what else I do? I did that marathon pace run, 9 miles, but 6 miles of that a marathon effort. That was good apart from the optical heart rate sensor. My battery on my chest strap went, so I was relying on the optical heart rate reading, and that is just all over the place. I'm not even sure.
I mean, you can like be dying. You can be like walking and it's like 178.
I don't know. Yeah. How can they even sell it? I don't understand.
How? And it wastes the battery. I'm like, just don't even want it. Just take it away, you flashing green.
Yeah, it was frustrating, but I only did, which was annoying, one strength session, and that wasn't a motivational issue. I just normally I'd write my week down, bit of A4 paper, just on Monday, this, Tuesday, that, and I forgot to do it. So without that little bit of prompting, that bit of structure. So yeah, listeners, plan your week on a Monday or whenever Sunday night. I'd like to do it just so you know where you are, because before I knew it, it was Saturday, and I'd only done my. Oh my goodness, I don't know what it was, gluten thighs or something like that.
Butts and tums or whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, I just need a bit more prep. I felt, I'm not like, oh goodness me, I can't be bothered to do my strength exercises. I just completely forgot. So yeah, 80 miles. I'm not too sure about the hours of exercise, 12,000 feet. I think that's a pretty
1,800
good.
hours of exercise.
Well, I've done myself in, obviously. I peaked, but yeah, that was good. So what about you?
Yeah, I had another good week. I peaked as well. I feel like I've peaked. Feel a slight shadow of my former self. Went last Tuesday, then another Swift race. One more tonight, and then we've got 2 weeks off, I think. Thank God. Last week, what was it? It wasn't too bad. I mean, I got dropped, as you do. But then I found a little group and I just kind of like stuck with that group. And there was a big climb at the end. And that was good. I was strong at the climb. God, I overtook like 2 virtual people. I felt incredible. But it was a bit shorter. Tonight, it's 52K or something. It's going to be Mahusa. It's going to be an hour and 40 or something. And if I get dropped right at the start, it's going to just be me pedaling for an hour and 40 minutes by myself.
That sounds quite depressing.
I've not been for a run today. Normally I do a run in the morning and then I'll do the bike race in the evening. But the way the day fell, I couldn't run this morning. And so I actually think that might be a good thing. And I'm going to save the legs a little bit more for tonight. Just see if I can just find a group, somebody to ride with me, somebody to care. I did a race on the Sunday to practice on the course, a category down, and it was joy. It was a joy. I could see the screen. I could breathe. I was like, this is why I should just go down. But then again, I'm like, but I'm one of the, like we all are. You want to work as hard as you can, don't you? And I feel that would be like. So anyway, when
do you start thinking about the race? When will your focus, your eating and your prep for it? When will all that kick in?
2 minutes before Tuesday night, I'm out with the kids. Don't finish. The oldest one doesn't finish football till 7:30, and I got to be warming up at 10 to 8. So he doesn't come in the door till like 7:45. Somebody else drops him home. So I have to have his tea ready. And he eats it next to me while I warm up on the bike. I have to have the other 2. Like, it is a military operation. It's not enjoyable preparation. And then I just have to say to them, please go to bed. And I just have to hope they go to bed because then I have to put the radio in so I can't hear what they're saying.
Yeah.
They're very good though. Hopefully Bryn will be back so then I can relax a little bit more. But I have my tea now. I have my tea at like 5 because I have to start warming up at 7:45. And because tonight's going to be a couple of hours on the bike, I'll have some gels and stuff, but then I won't finish till 10. I won't be asleep till, so I might have a day off. I'm going to see how I feel these next 2 days. It's been big. So yeah, but another big week last week. I didn't get to 80 miles. I think I got to 70 miles, about 50, another 1,000 meters of climbing the New Gary, I think. Good hike. good long run, felt good on the long run. Did my uphill, we were talking about it, wasn't it? I did 5 by 10 minutes.
5 times 10.
Yeah, it was 4 till 6. And I was like, well, I'm just going to run to the top of the col, basically. And it took me 5 lots of 10 minutes. It was meant to be moderate climb, and like a lot of it is like 30% hill. But I ran it all. So I was pretty impressed at the old glutes.
That's good.
Butts, wasn't it? Tum and butts. My workouts were working, and I was able to run it all and keep control, because that's really hard on hill climbs. Is to actually run under control, because you can attack it or you can go really slow. That medium pace. So I get to like 7 or 8 minutes and be like the form. I'd be like pretty tired now. And the last 2 minutes would go really slow.
Well, I enjoyed the pole when you mentioned the poles. That really did help me keep upright.
It's like I know what I'm talking about. And then lots of other little bits of running to cap off a good week. And I think I did about 5 hours of biking. And then yesterday I did 5-hour hike. I hit the 5-hour mark.
Sweet Lord,
that's quite a long time to be hiking with the old backpack. I also managed to get the old backpack up some chains on.
I saw that Instagram.
Oh God, I was like, I had to have a little moment. I was like, come on, embrace the butt cheeks. I find my heart rate goes through anything like really steep. I had 6 kilograms on, I think, yesterday. Anything really steep. You feel a heart rate. Anyway, did it good. So from our house, there's 1,000-meter climb direct, really steep. It took me, it's 3 miles, basically, 1,000 meters. You sort of go up and then along a bit and then up. And that was quite hard. I found that quite hard with the backpack. It just seemed to take me so long.
Yeah.
But then the rest, so that was about an hour and 40 minutes it took me. And then the rest of the walk was undulating. I do find I get really hungry hiking more than running. I found out a fuel again. I had a bagel, I had a bar, I had a big bag of like fruit and nut mix.
Well, 5 hours is a long time. And I sometimes think I don't need to fuel the same, but then it catches me out.
I'm learning this, and I had tailwind in my pouches, and then I realized I hadn't taken a refill tailwind. So I was annoyed at myself, because that's 200, 300 calories. I was like, you idiot. So I definitely next week need to take more fuel for these hikes, because then I come back and I'm starving, and I never like to come back. I think that's a good sign, because you obviously haven't fueled enough. But I don't know. It's hard to know. I'm like, I hope these are good. I hope I'm getting stronger from these. But I definitely like the next day, like today, I'm fine. I'm tired, but I'm tired from the cumulative training rather than yesterday. I just keep thinking, oh my God, for the actual race, I'll still be out there. Like when I came back after 5 hours, pretty tired. I had a nice shower, had 2 cups of tea, had my lunch, got on with the day. My God, I don't get to do that. It's going to be another 100 hours.
Goodness me. I don't even like thinking about stuff like that.
It's better not to think about it. Anyway, we're ticking off. We're getting there.
It's that classic long run, isn't it? You do your long run and you think, maybe the 6 mile of it at marathon pace, and you're just like, how the hell can I do this for the full 26.2? We do it.
My long runs, like at the moment, it's about between 17 and 20 miles, depending on how much climbing. And I'm pretty tired after those. And I think, but then when you do really long races, it just sort of goes, doesn't it?
I don't know what happens.
I don't know what happens. It's like a black hole. Anyway, we're both still alive. We're both still moving forward. And what I've done this week, Gary will repeat next week of what he's done in the training. So next week.
Keep an ear out, listeners.
Hey, what else I'm doing? One last thing is a lot of upper body work at the moment. It's because I'm not doing heavy weights on my legs, because my poor legs are taking a battering at the moment. And because of the way I'm finding, I had a sports massage this morning, and my lovely lady said that your feet, your plantar is really, really tight. And I'm sure that's the weight with the walking.
Yeah.
So I'm having to roll my feet lots. So I'm doing leg conditioning, but I'm not doing my normal weights. But what I am doing is a lot of upper body, proper gym, like gym bunny dumbbell exercises. The classic, the hammer curls, bicep curls.
Yeah.
That I'm demonstrating if you're not watching. The lat raises,
all
this stuff to strengthen the back giving myself every fighting chance that feeling the backpack will feel like it's just a little feather on my back.
So important. It's good to listen to, actually, how much dedication you're putting into it. It's good.
I know. Well, then when it all goes wrong, at least people will say she did try really hard, though.
Well, that's a very good point, actually, because I know in the past when I've dodged sessions and the race hasn't gone well, and you look back at those missed sessions, the missed workouts, but yeah, you couldn't turn around and say I didn't tick all the boxes.
Same to you, right back at you, the weights, right back at you. I bet none of these people dodged their sessions either at York Marathon. Gary's been nice. It's the first thing he said to me. Go on, Gary. You tell us all that.
Well, yeah, I've got a keen eye on York. I'm fond memories of York Marathon. I've done it quite a few times, but with this V50 vest. So I was looking at the top 8 V50 men, and if I haven't cocked it up, it is on it. There's a potential. 302 is the slowest V50 man. So it's not like you've got to be hanging, I can't take it easy. It's still a fast run. But if I don't go to rack and ruin or get an injury after Lake 100, so I'm feeling okay now. Lake 100 was end of July, sorry. So my initial thoughts are that's too much too soon. But apart from today, I feel pretty rubbish. Generally speaking, I'm feeling okay. So yes, if I never had a month of eating donuts every day, and come back into training in a better shape.
I think if like I was listening to a podcast with the Norwegian triathlon. He's actually the ex-Norwegian, but now he coaches the really good Norwegian triathletes. And he says they have their next goal before, which is against kind of like the philosophy we've been using. Like you should have, your time off and you shouldn't set goals straight away and reflection, all that. I'm sure that they do have that in their program as well. But he said they have their next goal before the race that they're doing, and they move on to that next goal as soon as they finish the race, that they are already recovering, they're already moving on.
I do like the rest normally.
These are elite professional, but I don't think there's anything of you thinking like, okay, I'm going to have that too, but I'm just going to have the 2 weeks off after Lakeland. And then I'm going to turn with a little bit more focus, start to turn it around a little bit quicker, rather than perhaps this time you had
I don't know what I did for the first 4 weeks.
You floated around a little bit more, didn't you? Which is absolutely fine and it's totally to be expected. And as non-elite, professionally paid athletes, we need to do that, not just for our own selves, but also for everybody else around us. We can't stay in this training zone for all the time because it's not fair on
everybody else. But I think it's a goal I can achieve. But it's not a goal I can just rock up to. So I have to kind of take it seriously. But yeah, I think it is on. But this is, next year, the caliber of runner could be a lot faster. And then this is all in vain, this conversation. But we'll see. I think, I'll definitely keep an eye out for the entry when that all opens up. I think it's open now, actually. But what I do need to do is make sure that York Marathon 2023 is a age group qualifying race. I'm not going to enter it if I, as much as I enjoy it, I'm not going to.
You're only in it for one thing. That's
the glory. Yeah. But Bernard Basubin took the win over there at York, 2:22.56, and Samantha Antel took the win for the ladies, 2:54.18. I wonder how both their races went, because it's a pretty nasty hill at the end of York. So if you're chasing a specific time, it could be quite a shock to the system. It literally is. It must be bloody like a 10 or 15 degree hill, which at the end of a marathon, literally right at the very end of a marathon.
Must be like a wall.
Yeah. I've seen so many people just walk up that hill. It's quite. Well, it's not funny for those. It's funny for spectators. But yeah, great. Well done, everybody. And hopefully see somebody on the start line next year.
Mm-hmm. We also had running last man standing. Now, I didn't know, but I just saw that it's like the World Championships. There were lots, and then that's why this is called the satellite. I get it all now. The last man standing World Championships was happening all around the world. And the UK version, the UK National Satellite Championships, was won by Matt Blackburn, who won with 47 yards, which is 196 miles. Completed. And congratulations to Andrew Jackson for the assist. They went on and on. There was three of them left for a long time.
It's so important, isn't it, that assist? So yeah, Andrew Jackson gets a big pat on the back because Matt Blackburn couldn't have got where he did without Andrew Jackson. Yeah, really
What
good.
a relief when that last must go on stopping.
I should have paid more attention to this. I wonder if it's still going somewhere around the world, or
Yes,
who
well,
has
when
won.
I looked earlier, the American version was still going.
Oh my goodness.
And there were quite a few people still left in. It's not, no. I'd hear that kettle boiling and it'd be all over. We also had the Autumn 100 happening down south, won by Debbie Martin-Gonzani in 17 hours 58, a masterclass in pacing. I say it every time. If you are ahead of Debbie in a 100-miler, you need to go behind her. Just follow the pacing. She works her way through the field. It is a masterclass in how to pace 100 miles. She was 20 minutes off the lead at one point.
Okay, wow.
Keeps moving forward. She never slows down. And Harry Geddes won in 14 hours 52. There were some really fast men's time up at the front and a really close ladies race as well, which was great to see. Autumn 100 fast becoming a really good, very popular autumn 100-mile race. Good conditions, really good conditions this year. I think it might have already sold out for next year. Okay. Maybe she's probably haven't even gone out. But keep an eye on the Centurion. If you're looking for a 100-miler, your first 100-miler, keep an eye on the Centurion pages of when you can enter, because it's absolutely perfect for your first 100-miler. If you're going to complete a 100-miler, if you want the experience of running 100 miles and you want to take out a lot of the variables, this race has it in all for you. And also it will give you, it's just such a fantastic experience as well, even though, as we've said before, you have to run to Reading.
I quite like Reading. But if you also, a lot of people go with 100-mile races are sub 24 hours, and it looks like by both of these times that is achievable for a wider range of the
and on trail, because sub 24 is hard on trail for a lot of people as well with the hills, and this has got hills, but it's nothing mega. You get the down, you get the benefit of the down as well as the up, and you get a lot of concrete as well. It's got the mixture, and also because of its unique 4 spurs, you get to see people, and I think that's a big thing when you take up ultra running, is that you are alone for a lot of it. You have no idea how the rest of the race is going, but in this you get to see everybody many times in all shapes and guises, people in terrible states, but also you get to see people smoking fast.
Thanks again to all our Patreon members keeping the mics and the lights on. We're going to extend, it was successful the last competition we did with some cheat charge goodies, so we thought we'd keep it going all the way until the 1st of December. So everybody who's a Patreon member between now and the 1st of December, we'll pop your names in a hat and I'll get my little Wheel of Fortune out.
It's a Wheel of Fortune. I think you should do the Wheel of Fortune live next time.
Live?
I love that program, Wheel of Fortune. Needs to go tick, 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 tick. Needs to put the star on. I can't remember what the aim of the game was. I just like the wheel and the tick, tick, tick.
If I can work out how to do it live, then we'll do it.
Well, you've got enough time. Pull your finger out. This week, we chat with David Starley and Jasmine Paris, both members of the Green Runners. Jasmine needs no introduction to anyone on the trail running scene. And David, he's a 24-hour environmentalist. It's his job and it's his passion. He has an absolute wealth of knowledge of all things, from bananas to milk and tea, to new ideas on how we can offset our carbon footprint, to all the work the Green Runners are doing in the background. Sure, just like Gary and I, if you're trail runners, you suffer from what David coined very well as environmental anxiety. We're all united in our love for the outdoors and the trails, but in return, possibly more aware than some that our actions often don't reflect our intentions, and our love for running results in an impact on the environment, which we can't undo. Or can we? So these are questions that we pose to the Green Runners. The Green Runners were founded on 4 principles that in a minute David's going to explain, and that Jasmine has proven that even the bestest, the elitist runners can follow and make a difference. So turn up the volume, everybody. Focus. This is probably our most important interview to date. And also one of my faves, really made me think, and has prompted a lot of discussion between me and my family as well. So have a little listen. Love to know your thoughts on it. We are delighted and thrilled to welcome Jasmine and David from the Green Runners to the podcast. It's a late one. It's an evening, so we're all a little flustered. Jasmine and I are fending off kids in the background. So if you hear any noise or anything, it's all part of it. Good evening. Hi, David. I always feel like something from Eurovision then. Good evening. Good evening. Hi, David. Hi, Jasmine. We're going to start with a couple of icebreaker questions. It's our new start. We feel it loosens our guests up a little bit and sets the tone for our lowbrow podcast. And I'm going to start with David. You've got 2 questions here, David. Are you ready?
Go on.
Yeah. Okay. Your number 1, your favorite breakfast food.
Oh, classic toast.
You're the winner. Gary was just scoffing toast in his mouth before we let you onto the Zoom call. It was quite disgusting. Love it. If you could be any breed of dog, David, what would you be?
Oh, probably some form of collie that just has limitless energy.
I love a collie.
I love a collie. Slightly crazy. Could turn. Yeah. Could go at any point. Okay, I'm getting that. I'm getting the vibe.
Nothing wrong with crazy.
There's nothing wrong with a bit of crazy.
I like crazy.
Jasmine, a couple of questions for you.
How many cups of tea or beverage of choice do you have each morning?
Probably like 2 or 3 before I leave the house. And then, yeah.
I knew we'd be best friends, Jasmine. Sometimes I have 4. Sometimes I've had 4.
Do you have a point in the evening though where no more beverage?
No. I just switched to decaf in the evening.
I don't drink tea or coffee, so there's my.
Oh, David!
Oh, wow.
Oh dear.
Cancelled.
We'll try to keep talking to you.
One more, Jasmine. If you could learn a new skill, what would it be?
David got really easy questions. I guess, what would it be? Just right now, I'm looking out the window at the dry stone wall at the end of my garden. I've always thought how lovely it would be to be like skilled and be able to actually do dry stone walling, because I also think it would be a gorgeous way to spend a day. Just, you know, when you actually watch them, they're so skilled. So I think that would be something that would actually take a long time to learn to do well.
I actually just been coaching a dry stone waller. He was training for his first 100-miler. He has 2 collie dogs. And he goes out and he dry stones walls every day. It's hard though. It's a hard physical work. I was like, I don't think we need much strength training in that plan.
You're exhausted before you've even started exercising.
It's hard. It's physical hard, but the satisfaction of a good wall.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourselves, your background, and what brought you to be Green Runners? Jasmine first, and then David, maybe.
Yeah, so I'm like my background, I guess I am a mum of 2, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. As a job, I'm a vet and I do some research as well. And I've been a runner since, I guess, I don't know, 14 years or so now. I'm primarily, I think of myself as a fell runner, and I do kind of I like long distances, and kind of the more technical, the better. So, and my kind of background was always like lots of hiking in the mountains, even from a really early age. And I just love being in kind of wilderness and big mountains and and that kind of nature. And I guess that's probably how I really came to the Green Runners, like, you know, just loving the outdoors and loving the kind of nature and the beauty of the world we live in. And then being really concerned about the future of all that. And now with having children, even that's kind of an added fact in that, obviously being more aware of what the future's going to be like for them. So those are things that kind of inspired me, I guess, to want to try and make positive changes for the future. And and then I think we'll talk a little bit more about how the Green Runners came about later on in this podcast.
Yeah, so I guess I'm an environmentalist that's also a runner, whereas Jasmine's the runner that's an environmentalist.
What a combination. We've got the ultimate combination on the podcast.
We do. So my full-time role is in climate change. So I work for a large company, global company, and trying to understand how we get that company to transition towards net zero and reduce its carbon emissions over time, which is not a simple task, if I'm honest. But then in my spare time, I love running and trails in particular. And since moving to the Southwest in 2019 in Devon, I've been out on all sorts of lovely trails and really got into the longer distance stuff. So now I would call myself an ultra runner, done a few 50Ks and just recently a 50-mile race as well for my first one. So the distances are going up, but let's see where we go from here, basically.
Do you find hanging out with Jasmine, the distances are just going up and up, and she's like, yeah, come on, go further?
Yeah, I don't think I'm quite at that level yet, but certainly seeing the exploits of Jasmine, Damo, and the like is certainly quite inspiring for me.
We should say now, though, it's not a caveat of joining the Green Runners.
No.
Part of this movement that you need to be running these crazy distances. It's much more as they both said, first of all, before they mentioned anything about their running, is the love of outside and the trails and nature. Just, David, what was the 50-miler that you just did?
The Chiltern Wonderland Centurion race.
Superb. I've done it myself. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I actually loved every minute of it pretty much. So couldn't have gone better, really. And I also came 18th, which is a surprise.
Hey.
Your first 50-miler, that's amazing. Do you remember that really pitchy hill up by the windmill? Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, I passed a few people there. I tend to be better on the steep bits.
Yes. Oh, okay. I love it. Well done. Super. Congratulations.
I love the knowledge this podcast gives me. Events that I never heard of, don't know what the trails are like. Every week I learn about a new event and different trails. That sounds awesome. But could we go back to the Green Runners, David? What is it? Where did it come from? And what are its aims?
Yeah, so the Green Runners is a community of runners making changes for a fitter planet. So it fundamentally started soon after COP26. So that was the climate conference in Glasgow in 2021 in November. And a group of concerned runners about climate change got together, including Jasmine and Darren and Damien Hall as well as many others. And they put together a little video from the running community to world leaders calling for more action on climate change. Because as hopefully everyone's heard by now, we've only got 5 or 6 years or so left on our carbon budget before we surpass or will surpass the 1.5 degree safe limit, beyond which, the effects of climate change will be quite catastrophic, particularly for the more vulnerable places around the world in like the global south and Pacific islands that will disappear, for example. So they put together this amazing video calling on world leaders to do more. But then they were like, well, why would we stop here?
Yeah.
And what's the legacy to carry on? So they got together and came up with the idea of forming a group of runners and forming a community. And that was how the Green Runners came about. And then some of us got involved quite early on. So I found out about it through Darren. I was like, I'd love to get involved, really passionate about environment and making improvements, and how can I get involved? And so we came up with our 4 pillars. So we have one, which is how we move. So how do we get from A to B? For example, in a race, can we get there by public transport instead of driving, and helping to reduce our footprint that way? What we eat is number 2. So in our diets, especially as runners, we tend to eat quite a lot, and we need a lot to power ourselves. And therefore, our dietary footprints are probably higher than the average person. But if we eat more plant-based foods, or a planet-based diet, as some people might call it, reducing your meat and dairy consumption, for example, then that can help as well. The third one is about kit. And we love our kit as runners. There's no denying that. But can we love our existing kit better? Can we repair it?
I love that. I love that.
Can we have
love it better?
Second-hand kit, pre-loved kit as well, rather than always buying new all the time. And making things last is really important in terms of reducing the environmental impacts, because any new product, even if it's a sustainable piece of clothing, still has impacts along the way. And then finally, the fourth one is about speaking out, which for me is probably the most important one of all of them, because individually we can do these small changes, which are important and we should definitely do them, but we won't get where we need to be without the broader system changes happening as well. And so what the Green Runners is about really is galvanizing everyone individually to make their own pledges, but coming together as a galvanized community to call for a much broader system change from the running industry and from national governments and beyond and worldwide.
I've done a couple of podcasts about this, and that was far better than I've ever managed to do.
We
So.
can just record that bit. Next podcast, you can just be like, "Look, I just segment David in, live streaming it."
Yeah, please.
Well, that's all right. That's why I'll do the spokesperson environmentalist parts, and Jasmine does all of the inspiring running bits.
I'm curious. So sometimes you get, I don't know if they're climate deniers or just trying to be devil's advocate. Is it always the case if there is a plant alternative? Say, I think like the beef and the dairy industry have a real bad impact on climate. But would it always be the case if you went for an oat milk or an almond milk? There'll be obviously people who kind of jump all over that. But fundamentally, is that always a better option, the plant option?
Well, as with everything, there's always devil in the detail. But what I could categorically say is almost always the dairy and meat option is worse, especially if it's beef from cattle farming. The main reason why is because cows and sheep emit loads of methane emissions from when they're digesting their food. And methane is a really powerful greenhouse gas. It absorbs a lot more energy from the sun, and therefore it heats up the planet actually 29 times more than carbon dioxide within a 100-year period, if we're comparing it on that. Wow. So 1 sort of ton of methane is 29 times worse. So beef, if you look on a scale of protein, for example, is usually significantly higher, or pretty much always significantly higher than any other form of protein. And I would recommend everyone checks out Our World in Data as a website for comparing different products. I don't have the figures in my head today.
No, but that's handy. We can pop that in the show notes, and it's something that I'm always like. I like the data, and I think lots of people like to.
So would that stacking affect like a cow up against a chicken?
Yeah, so chicken and white meat tends to be much lower in terms of carbon emissions.
Okay.
If we're comparing it strictly on that basis. However, there are other impacts. So water consumption of any animal product is far higher, because you're still having to provide all of the food and the water for the animals to live, whereas plants consume much less. And actually, one of the biggest problems with our animal agriculture system globally is how inefficient it is, or with our agriculture generally, because we feed animals and then the animals feed us. Whereas if you go straight to the plants that are fed to the animals, suddenly you've taken out one part of the chain. And there's always losses in energy along the way. But yeah, the summary would be from me is that avoiding beef is the best thing you can do. And the next best thing is trying to avoid things like cheese and the key dairy products. From a carbon perspective, obviously there's ethical reasons as well that people may avoid animal products as well.
Yeah.
But my recommendation would be Our World in Data, or the amazing book, How Bad Are Bananas? So that's by Mike Berners-Lee, and it has a comparison of different proteins, it has comparison of different milks, has comparison of fruits and vegetables like bananas.
Wow.
It even tells you the carbon footprint of a full stop in the book at the end. So it tells you all of the science that people might want to know.
My kids probably, like everybody's kids, are much more aware of this at a much earlier age. And they came home from school the other week and they went, "We can't eat bananas anymore. We cannot eat bananas anymore. They are bad for us." But they're not entirely sure like why they're bad for you. They were just thrilled really, because I always make them eat bananas as a choice of snack. And they were like, "No, Mum, no, we can't eat bananas anymore."
Well, they'll be sad to know that bananas are actually pretty low in terms of carbon footprint. They're one of the lowest.
I'm going to get this data chart up on the fridge and go, "We're going to be okay, kids."
And they're really good for electrolytes in running because of the potassium, which is one of the essential nutrients you need. So yeah, bananas are pretty good actually. There's one thing I didn't say, which is one of the caveats is about air freighted food versus travel by land. So our food comes from all over the world and is imported. And when it's flown, because it's going to go off if it takes longer to transport, that has a huge impact on its carbon. But one of the key things is that even air freighted food tends to have a lower carbon footprint than beef. air freighted plant-based food. But what we should be aware of is eating seasonally. So there are fruits, and vegetables. Asparagus is the main one that is talked about in the literature. If you import asparagus in the winter months, then it has a massive carbon footprint compared to in the summer when it's actually in season. So trying to understand what fruit and veg are in season and trying to align diet to that is a really useful step. But the most important thing is the meat and dairy. And there's a big misconception that eating locally grown food and locally farmed food is much better for the environment. But the fact is actually that that's not true. It has a very small percentage of the overall carbon footprint. I think, and this may not be exactly accurate, the carbon footprint of locally farmed beef versus international beef imported, the transport part of that makes up like 5% or less than 5% of the overall footprint.
This is a bit of a generalization, but the French seem to be much. I live in France, and like this season, it's all seasonal produce. Like you go to restaurants and they have the plat du jour, and it's like what's in season. Like at the moment, it's mushroom season, so there's just mushrooms everywhere. And even in the supermarkets, it does tend to be what's in season is what you get. I would say maybe in the UK, we're just so out of touch with like what foods actually at the time of year we should be eating. So maybe that is something else as well. People could, a little bit of education, again, you can do with your family as to actually what is being grown. And flip it a bit now and talk to Jasmine and talk a little bit about not just what we can do, and perhaps maybe from your own experience as well, what we can do as runners. Now we've got this fantastic setup of the Green Runners. What, maybe talk personally, Jasmine, or just like maybe from of your experience when people are sort of looking and going, okay, I don't do very much at all, but I'm aware that I want to do some things. Where did you start and sort of your journey as a Green Runner?
I guess it's probably easiest to answer along the lines of those 4 pillars. So if we just kind of stick with, I guess, how I approached it and how kind of tips for people. And there's loads of information, by the way, on the website as well. So we can kind of point out where that is as well. But in terms of travel, so how we move from one place to the other, I think for a lot of runners, that if you're racing, then that's probably going to be one of the biggest outlays in terms of your carbon footprint in terms of how you get to races. So I guess in the last year or so, especially since I've sort of become a Green Runner and become more aware of it, I've really had to think about how many races I travel to, even within the UK. And if I'm going to go to a race, I aim to get there by land or sea. That would and limit flying. So for example, this year I went to the UTMB and I traveled by train to the UTMB, so it was quite a long journey from Edinburgh down to London, then got the Eurostar and then traveled by train to Chamonix. But then I got to see all the places that I was passing through, and that was great. And I also felt the kind of sense of satisfaction of having managed to get there by train. So that would, and I did fly to one race this year, and I went to Berkeley because there was no way of getting there really except flying. So in terms of that, I guess we sort of, advice to people would be, if you're going to, think about where you're going to. Ideally, don't fly at all, but if you are going to fly, then think about, is it a race that you can really not, is this an experience you cannot replace with anything that might be more local, or that you could get to without flying? If you really are going to fly, then can you make it into like a trip that's really worthwhile? So like make it into the holiday of a lifetime, or go and make it fit it around a trip to see family or work if you're traveling for work. So those are kind of ideas. And also carbon offset with a kind of company that I trust. And then so that would kind of be travel. And then obviously if you can go by public transport, like within the UK as well, then that's what I would do. And on the kind of other things, share lifts in the car. If you're going to travel by car, then share lifts. Those are kind of tips. And then in terms of how we eat, well, personally, I just, we don't eat very much meat anyway, and we didn't really eat beef or lamb at all. Kind of, we'd sort of stopped doing that already. But in the last sort of year, I've also tried to reduce the amount of dairy that I was eating, because I definitely did eat dairy. So that was a bit sad for me, because I think like lots of people just love cheese. So that's been an ongoing battle with trying to find cheeses that I like. But I'm making some progress. But like milk, so milk's a big one, because I actually drink quite a lot of milk, just because I drink quite a lot of tea, and that I have milk and tea. So I've switched to oat milk, and I actually like that more now. So I consider that like a small victory.
It's my big thing is the milk, is because I love milk and tea, and like almond milk or something. David's disappointed in me, I know.
I hate almond milk, but I also found oat milk to be better than dairy, personally.
Yeah. So I mean, I really like oat milk now. So that would kind of be my tip there. And just learning to diversify with kind of new sandwich combinations and stuff. I made we've got our own vegetable patch now in the garden, so we grew lots of stuff this year. I made loads of chutneys, and that's good for like livening up your hummus sandwiches. So definitely making progress there. So that's kind of like how you fuel. And generally just for races, I try to again have a kind of plant-based diet when I'm actually choosing my nutrition, and try and kind of choose companies, outdoor provisions, for example, that have kind of sustainable type packaging and so on as well. So and then how you kit up, that would really be for me, just trying to make the items that you have last as long as possible and looking after them. I actually I was sponsored, or I was an ambassador for a clothing brand until this year, when I kind of decided to step back from that. And just because I found it difficult to do that alongside telling people, trying to tell people that they shouldn't buy more kit, and then being used as a kind of a post a picture of someone in new kit every 6 months. So I decided to just step away from that, and then I'd rather show pictures of like my repaired shoes and things than brand new shoes every few months. So that's what I did in terms of that. And I'm learning to to repair all my kit. I'm not very good at sewing, so that's another kind of learning curve. And then the last one, speaking out. Well, I guess I'm doing this podcast. I'm not brilliant at like sort of social media and things. I always get a bit nervous before any tweet. I have to think about it. Once I've tweeted it, I go around in circles as to whether it was the right thing to do. I'm like the worst I'm definitely not a spontaneous like social media user, but I kind of feel like it's worthwhile. I sort of feel that if I've got this platform now, I feel like at least this is maybe being used for something that's possibly positive. Hopefully positive.
I think what you've done, especially stepping away from the brand we shall not mention, that is probably one of the, I think you're such a highly respected, and I met every trail runner in Britain knows who you are, and to make that stand, I don't know any other elite athlete of your level who has done that. Maybe Kilian in his own way, but for you to make that stand and to step away and say, I'm going to do this, look what I can do, I think that's incredible. And I imagine it's opened many people's eyes who have thought, well, if Jasmine can do that, I can do the smaller things that will make such a difference. So I think I so admire you for doing that and for speaking out about that, because most people would cut off their right arm to be a pin-up. Gary would.
Well, I appreciate how, not that I don't think it's ever going to come, but I appreciate how tough it would be to walk away from it. Even if it is like an ambassador role and a sponsored athlete, you're probably slightly different, but still, it does help financially. It's a big move to step away from it. I've got a big question though. Have we found a suitable vegetarian non-dairy cheese?
Yes, that was good.
Any tips?
I feel like there's some members of the Green Runners that claim that they've definitely, I think Todd was quite enthusiastic about his recent cheese purchases. I have the ones I've tried so far they've not quite hit the nail on the head yet, but I've been told that it's best to like just move away from it completely for a few months. Don't eat any normal cheese and then start, because then you don't like compare it to normal cheese.
It tends to just be rubber, doesn't it?
Cheese was one of the last things I changed. actually, when I've sort of tried to transition.
Jasmine's maybe right. Just go cold turkey. Just
Cold
go
turkey,
totally
yeah.
away. Don't try and substitute. And I find in my sandwiches now, like roasted vegetables can bulk stuff out quite a bit. You know, when the cheese is the cheese, but roasted vegetables with hummus and chutney, that's pretty good. So pretty good.
Goodness me, I love chutney. And what is when you fix your shoes, is it a glue called Plastic Fantastic? Might be Dan Lawson, actually. I think he's championed that.
Yeah, that's where I would like definitely direct people towards the rerun.
Yeah, rerun clothing website.
Rerun clothing.
Also repair what you wear website. They're fab. And they're also on Instagram. And they're also really friendly. Like if you send them an Instagram DM with, how do I repair this? They'll probably reply with some ideas. So they're fab.
We have this amazing Patagonia wagon that comes round every season in the winter, and you can take, because I always rip my ski trousers because I'm such a bad skier. I always end up skiing into trees and going either side with my ski. And you can just take any of your ripped ski jackets, anything, gloves, and they just repair it all for free, which is amazing. So that's always a good thing. Should we jump onto our Patreon questions, Gary? Do you have anything else that?
Well, I was just going to say our show notes are going to be links to all these resources for people to go and check out.
Amazing, good host of people. It's all about education, isn't it? Because I know that I feel a constant guilt that I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough as the platform we have on the podcast, the platform I have as a runner and as a mother. I'm not doing enough. But what I've learned in researching this and writing my own pledge is that it's just the little things. And one of my pledges, actually, I shall share exclusively with you, is just to try and change a little thing every week, rather than go, oh my gosh, I need to make these big changes now. And, so one of my little things is so dull, but when I go to the shop, you get a recyclable brown plastic bag to put your fruit and veg in, and you go around, but then I end up with 8 or 10 brown bags. So I've now bought these little net bags. So every time, as well as taking my shopping bags, I'm going to take the net bags. And I was like, that's like so many bags per year I'm going to save. Yeah. And I've done my little thing per week. So maybe it's just something that I thought when I was thinking, I don't know where to start. I was like, I'm just going to think of something every week that, when you're doing something, you're unpacking your shopping and you're thinking, did I need that? Okay, next week I'm going to try and think of another way. So that was just one of my ideas.
I wish they could monetize recycling. When we go to Finland, it's quite common to go to a supermarket in Finland and you take in your tin cans and everything and you come back with a few euros. We just don't do it. Used to be glass bottles as a child, I remember that, but I don't even think they do that anymore.
No, it's one of the classic things that was cut because of cost, because it was costing the companies more money and they cut it out so that they could make more profit. Yeah. But we're seeing potentially a movement back in that direction, I think. So fingers crossed. But I just wanted to comment on what you're saying, Eddie, about feeling overwhelmed potentially.
Okay, I thought you were going to say about what I did. You're going to go,
no, what you did is fantastic.
This is useless. You're terrible.
Fantastic. And I think that it's really easy to get into this state of feeling like it's all so big and so complex. Climate change is incredibly complex, and it affects everyone in different ways. And there's so many different factors that contribute to it. So it's natural for us to kind of feel like, I don't know what I can do. My bit doesn't matter, or what can I do that actually makes a difference when these governments and big fossil fuel companies aren't doing anything themselves. But you have to distill it down into, if I do something, it will make at least some difference in my life or in the lives of people that I speak to and I network with. And then if you think about that multiplied by 7-8 billion people globally, or in the running community with the Green Runners multiplied by several thousand or several million runners, suddenly you have a sort of tidal wave of change. And it only takes, I think, 25% of people to actually make change happen within a movement. And so I think that it's so important that we all remember that those individual changes are really significant, and it does matter. And also doing something yourself removes that feeling of guilt and feeling of overwhelm. And so eco-anxiety, I think many of us feel that. And one of the best ways to feel less anxious is to just do something to make a small difference, whatever it is. And we don't need everyone to be perfect. There is no definition of perfect. So do that one thing, and then I think you'll feel much better. And then tell someone about it so that they can make their own thing.
But then that normalizes it too. You know, if somebody says they're reducing their beef intake or cutting beef out automatically, then that will normalize it for somebody else to do it. I think it's quite important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'd piggyback on that and say, like, I definitely think that once you start making one little change, it snowballs. Not to bring it back to me at all, but like, I definitely found that once I've tried to make one change in my diet and then like tried to eat more plant-based, then it snowballs, and I'm like doing baking and you know, also, it's definitely one of those things that kind of grows naturally, because you kind of probably partly because you get that satisfaction and you feel better as well from it, so that it kind of is positive feedback to try and do more.
We had heaps of questions to ask you guys, so we've chosen as many as we think we can fit in. Do you want to jump in with the first one, Gary?
Yeah, these are our Patreon members have sent these in, so thanks to everybody over on Patreon. Dave Aliano asks, is it time for organizations, I suppose, such as Abbott's or event organizers to carbon offset or even offer advice on the websites for carbon offset? Dave said he couldn't see any on the Abbott's website. Similarly for UTMB, you know, we're traveling all over to get these stones and then thousands of individual journeys to get to Chamonix. Or do you think everything should be left to individual conscience? You know, I don't know. Are you aware of any races that actively carbon offset or offer race participants advice?
Jasmine might have a better idea of which races do offer offsetting, but if I comment first of all on kind of like the actual question of should they be offering offsetting, we could have an entire hour conversation about the carbon offsetting versus not carbon offsetting. The key thing to remember is that carbon offsetting is the last resort. What you have to do before carbon offsetting is reducing the actual carbon that's produced from whatever it is, be it a race or a business, because the offsetting doesn't actually reduce the amount of carbon that's released into the atmosphere. And typically, carbon offset programs like planting trees may take 20, 30 years to actually draw down the amount of carbon that has been produced today, and we don't have that time. So actually reducing the carbon now is the primary goal that we should all be focusing on, and we should all be asking the races to improve on. But once they have actually done as much as they can on their own operations, then offsetting what's remaining and what's really hard to get rid of is fine. But it's really important that what they do offset is a valid and potentially an accredited and certified carbon removal, because there are many schemes out there. It can be quite confusing, and some of them are not genuine, some of them are controversial, may have human rights exploitation, and there are many issues with carbon offset schemes. My personal perspective on it would be that you either pay for a carbon removal like Climeworks, which literally takes CO2 out of the atmosphere via a direct capture process, or you actually use that money to pay for supporting organizations like charities, like Client Earth, for example, environmental lawyers, because although it's not directly offsetting carbon, you're contributing to people who are helping to make the change happen. And for me, that's potentially more impactful. But anyway, that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I guess all I was going to add was, you asked about races. I know that, for example, Aurea events, like they definitely kind of got a full kind of analysis of their carbon footprint. And I think they did something similar in terms of just trying to offset the final kind of something that they couldn't do anything about in terms of carbon. You mentioned the UTMB. Having been to the UTMB this year, I agree. I traveled there, but I really don't agree with their kind of sending runners all over the world to take part in the World Series and collect running stones.
Yeah.
And actually, much as I kind of want to go back and do the race again because I didn't really achieve what I wanted, I don't think I'm going to do it because I just can't bring myself to kind of take part in that again. Just I don't really agree with the ethos anymore in terms of sending people all over the world to do the World Series. So I guess that would be another thing that people need to think about, is whether whether they want to support a race if they know that, if they can see that the carbon footprint is terrible. They don't need to send people all over the world to take part in the World Series. It's just to make up more money. So in that situation, I just don't, there's no point in offsetting it. They just shouldn't be doing it in the first place. My thought.
With the marathon majors, I feel this too. It'd be wonderful to go to Tokyo and all these places, but when they have the 6-star finishes, it seems to encourage, you can't kind of travel by public transport and trains to half of those countries. I suppose if you're in the States, you could do 3 by land, but the rest of it, no, you're pretty stuck to air travel if you want to complete that.
Yeah, it's not ideal, let's say, from an environmental perspective. Although what I would say is, if you're doing one of those races every couple of years, and as Jasmine said earlier, you combine it with a holiday or something, then I think that's perfectly okay. And we don't want to take the fun out of people collecting, the stars and doing all the marathons that they've dreamed about, because that's not the point. We have to keep this fun, otherwise it becomes a chore and it becomes disenfranchising for everyone. So I think that, people should still have these dreams and things, but just maybe consider what those impacts might be of it and how they could reduce those impacts by making certain changes along the way, and potentially calling for the individual races to take more accountability themselves.
I always think, like with UTMB, I'm on the same page as you, Jasmine. I'm like, I'm not giving my dream to the UTMB money machine. I prefer to go and run it myself now than have to go and chase stones to get to somebody tell me that I need to go and do all that and give them money. And increase my carbon footprint for something that I don't agree with. But it's very tricky, and I know we'd be controversial I know lots of people that do want it, and that's fine, but maybe that's what they choose to do, and then they need to look at other avenues of their life as well to kind of to look at if that's not the choice that they're going to make. Another question. This one is for Jasmine. It's quite wordy, this Jasmine, but it's a good question. It's from Rebecca Morn. Some of the athletes that have pledged to make a difference with the Green Runners are sponsored. Brands rely on promotion of their products to generate sales and encourage participation in high-profile events around the globe aimed at inspiring and encouraging amateur athletes. It's a very effective sales tool, as we know, but it seems to be at odds with the Green Runner ethos. Will we see more established athletes stepping away from that support in order to uphold their beliefs, or do you feel that it's more the brand's responsibility to be a leading force in climate change? Because you can't, I guess as people that are sponsored, they're relying on that as their salary, and so it's a lot to ask, isn't it, athletes to then step away from that. Do you feel that brands, Jasmine, should be more environmentally conscious? Do you think they are turning that way? Certain brands certainly are, but I guess it's very individual as well.
I mean, I think it's a really great question, and to be honest, again, I think you could have a massive, huge debate about this. I'm in a lucky position. Like I've always just run for fun, and I've got a career, and especially now that I'm traveling less, even the financial support for kind of travel and things isn't such a big deal because I'm not going to many races. So for me, it wasn't that difficult to step away from a kind of sponsorship support ambassador kind of deal. And I realized that for younger athletes coming into the sport, if they're relying on that to kind of fund them through, then that's like obviously it'd be impossible to do it without that necessarily. I guess I would argue that you could also, you can also argue that if you're acting as an ambassador for a company, you're in the position to try and make them change. You've got some kind of that would be an argument that people would make, that they're potentially in the best position to kind of to speak out and to try and vote for change within that company. So, and I guess if they're not listening to you, then that might be time to think about moving. So that would probably be so I think it's not like it's a completely black and white, because ultimately the whole kind of setup of races and everything, I guess it won't work without some kind of company involvement and sponsorship and so on. But certainly, I think we need to move to a model where it's less about getting lots of new kit all the time, and it's more about sustainability and making things last, and less profit.
Yeah, and instead of athletes coming out every season and new kit and new, this is the trainer, look, our trainer has lasted. I ran the UTMB in it and I'm running it in it again, would be a much better message. And I think one that we should be listening to, rather than you need box fresh trainers every time you're going to do, if you want to achieve, basically, isn't it? You need this kit if you want to achieve, if you want to look like this person.
Yeah.
It's a big change. It's a big change of direction, even in like the last 2-3 years, really, for companies to make. And I guess it's not, if you think of like we are trying to turn an oil tanker, it's not something that can happen overnight, is it? That these big companies, we can't expect them to change. We can just be the voice asking them, keep asking them. And if you've got the higher profile voices, need to be the loudest, I guess, as well.
Jonathan Jameson over on Patreon. This is to you, Jasmine, sorry. What can individual participants do, or we probably touched on this earlier, in local regional races to offset their carbon? I know we have race organisers changing the way they offer race completion, trees, not teas, medals, that you can plant and grow flowers, etc. But what more do you think can be done? And then also Melinda Markle asked the question, are there any events that you're aware of that kind of get a gold star in terms of their green credentials?
Yes, I think when we had this chat recently, David, probably best to answer that last kind of question, because I think we had a list of the best races currently. But in terms of things that you could do, further things that events organisers can do, so I guess things we've not mentioned would be making it possible to get there by public transport. So it might be that the race organizer just needs to change the start time of a race by an hour, move it back by an hour to coincide with a train arriving on a Sunday morning type thing to the race start, and then putting on a minibus from the race from the train station to the race start. So that would be something that a race organizer could really easily do. Then there's obvious things like reusable cups, getting people to bring, more and more races now are asking people to bring their own cups and plates and cutlery, that's happened to me like several times recently, and that's fantastic. Not giving out t-shirts unless people really want, unless giving people the option of opting out of a t-shirt at the end, like you say, with trees not teas. I think offering like a vegan food option, like I think everybody will really eat that, so like if there's a meal, then making it vegan. And personally, I was delighted. I ran Lakes in a Day last weekend, and it was really lovely that they offered vegan food all the way around. So like every aid station, you had the option, and that is just great, because it meant that that you didn't have to kind of, because if you're running a race, you don't want to like not feed yourself, so you're going to eat what's at the aid station. But if they offer beforehand people to say if they want it vegan, that's fantastic. So things like that. Then David, do you want to say about the kind of the races that are the best that we've kind of come up with?
While you were talking, I was scrolling back frantically in the WhatsApp
I wondered
chat.
what you were doing. I thought you were doing some sort of shoulder exercise. This is been a good stretch.
So I found our list.
Well done.
So Cardiff Half Marathon is pretty good. I don't have the details on that one as to why. Bath Half has been nominated recently for their contribution. I think they've got things like Trees Not Teas, which is great. Those are a couple of the bigger ones. Also, Centurion that I did were pretty good. They had vegan options at every aid station, which was great. The start time was just about doable by public transport. I did it by train, which was good. Then there's ones like Impact Marathon in Scotland, where the entire event is about sustainability. The only trouble is it's in Mull, which is quite hard to get to.
Okay.
You can get there by a combination of train and ferry, but it's a bit tricky. But they have like the whole weekend is around conversations around climate and nature, and then they do tree planting on the Saturday before the running events on the Sunday. So that is great. From them. Darren Evans in our group has his own races, the Rathfinny Run. I think it's in Kent. They do a 10K and a half marathon, but he tries to make it as good as he can. So he offered like a shuttle bus to the start instead of people driving. as well as vegan food options and no teas at all.
Yes, good.
And,
I don't understand
like,
why
all
there's
sorts
still
of
even
things.
an option.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, for some people, I can understand
yeah.
it, but
no, I know.
once we've got 20 of them, we probably don't need
It does
any more.
depend on what part of the journey that person's on. I know, like now personally, it's well, I'll kind of take or leave. Maybe a special T-shirt, if it's a big event. But a lot of people, yeah, when they're just new to running, a T-shirt and a medal is a massive draw to an event. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I was thinking like a Green Runners thinking, or do you do this already? Like I talked to Sophie Power quite a lot about the She Runs campaign, about getting race organisers to get the She Runs like stamp of approval on their entry. And if they're women friendly, if they tick a number of boxes, they can use that in their publicity. Are Green Runners thinking about the same sort of thing, that people could, race directors sign up and have to pledge to do so many things or anything like that?
As far as I was aware, we definitely discussed that kind of idea. It's just about as David said, it's so complex, the kind of whole picture, that it's just about making it fair and but yeah, we definitely discussed kind of giving races a rating in terms, and also that hopefully would then feed back into the organisers wanting to achieve that kind of positive rating and that seal of approval. So it was discussed. David might know more about more recently.
Well, I think so. For the Green Runners, we're still relatively early in our journey. So we only really fully launched in April of this year. So we're about 5-6 months into the journey, and so far it's been about growing the community and trying to get the name out there, which I think we've been pretty good at. Thankfully.
Amazing, totally amazing.
It's really spiraled quite quickly, and then pretty soon we're outgrowing our resource capacity within our small team of passionate people.
Sure, yeah.
So what we're going to be looking to do soon is offer some volunteering positions for people in the community to get involved and take on different aspects of the work. And that will then allow us to do bigger things, like, for example, forming ratings for races. And I'm quite inspired by what Claire Poole has done with Sport Positive, if you're aware. So like the Sport Positive leagues, so for Sail GP, for instance, they have an impact league, and as part of the main championship of that sailing, they get the teams to compete on their sustainability credentials and what actions they've taken over the course of the championship. Equally, the football teams in the Premier League have an impact league, and so could we potentially leverage their platform and do something similar for running races? Maybe, but we're not there yet.
It's a great idea.
It's all moving. I didn't mean to make it. I understand that there's so much to be done, especially when you're all volunteers and you're giving up your time as well. But I love the fact that already you've done so much. We've got one more question, and then I'm sure it's bedtime in your house, Jasmine. I can hear carnage the other side.
You can hear that, yeah.
No, I can hear my own carnage. I can hear the stars going up and down the stairs. This is just one for you, David. Are you aware of any companies? This is from Martin Colburn. Are you aware of any companies and shops that make recycling easier, especially trainers? Be great if shops took shoes in as well to sell them as secondhand. Do you know any brands or shops that have adopted this idea?
Great question. And first thing is that we need more of the brands to do this. Very, very few actually do this. And it's one of the key things that we will be looking at doing through the Green Runners, is calling on brands to be better and take more ownership over their shoes. And so we have got a trainer survey at the moment. So there's a plug on our website. If anyone's able to complete it, just go to thegreenrunners.com, and on the front page is a link to the trainer survey, where we are gathering information about how long people's shoes last, what brands they've been wearing, so that then we can use that data to go to the brands and say, look, your shoes are good, but you could be better, or your shoes are not doing very well. Why is that?
I love that.
Yeah, but in terms of the ones that I'm aware of, I think very, very few offer recycling. And one of the reasons why is because recycling shoes is quite hard. They have multiple different materials that form them, and so even chopping them up and trying to recycle them that way is quite difficult. I don't actually remember any brand that offers true recycling of shoes. There might be one or two. I don't know if Jasmine's got any to mind. No,
I don't know of any, no.
but what you can do is use them for things other than running. So once they're end of life for running, could you use them as gardening shoes or something like that?
Dog walking.
My
general-
vapor flies have cut the lawn a few times.
Yeah.
My 4%.
I'll tell you what else as well is that I keep all mine now, and they're going down through the kids. As
Yeah.
the kids are getting older, they don't need nice new trainers. They can just wear out. They can just go in, and now we've got boxes of various the sizes on the back of them. And then when they go through their trainers, because kids go through trainers like school shoes, you can just grab a pair, and we try and wear them into the ground. And again, it's my part of like educating the kids of like, we wear these, they'll go through everybody until there's nothing left of them. But I know that trainers is big on a lot of runners' minds of now, using them, and then what do we do with them?
I've just on my Garmin Connect, I've stopped putting a mileage limit on my trainers because I thought it was like a psychological prompt. I think Strava do a similar thing.
Yeah.
So instead of going 600 miles new shoes, I'll just kind of take them as far as they'll go, really.
Yeah. Again, one of the things we'd like to change is Strava's default warning of change your shoes after a certain number of miles, which we, from our understanding and our research, I mean, we've had people like Jasmine who've done 2,000 miles on a pair of shoes. Clearly 400 miles as a default isn't correct.
Yeah.
It's just part of the marketing mechanism.
Thank you so much, David and Jasmine.
Yeah, thanks.
For giving up your very precious evening time. We're going to finish it with some big, sincere, deep questions for you. I'm going to ask you, David, a couple of questions, and then Gary's going to ask Jasmine a couple of questions. You thought the first ones were tricky. These ones are even harder.
Oh dear.
Okay, David. If you could live anywhere in the world for a year, where would it be?
Oh, anywhere at all. Oh, what a great question. A couple of things come to mind.
Don't worry about climate change. You can forget about that for the year. You've got a year.
I can't forget about it. So my whole life. So the first one that came to mind is Bhutan.
Okay.
It's one of the only countries in the world that's actually carbon negative.
Wow.
So I can't forget climate change.
No, I love the fact that you wouldn't let me. You were like, no, Eddie. No, come on, Eddie.
They also have an incredible sort of culture in that it's such a poor country in terms of financial, but they're really happy, and they're so happy with very little. And I think that we could learn a lot from that. And maybe living there for a year would be rub off on me a little bit.
I love that.
Oh, brilliant. That was a brilliant answer.
Good answer, yeah.
And it's also one of the things in my pledges is to teach my children, you don't need stuff to make you happy. You don't need this that we're told as, as we're sort of indoctrinated that more stuff will make you happier. Oh my gosh, that's great. What a great question, Eddie.
I would have said Spain.
What? I'd have gone to Spain. I'd have gone to Malaga for a year. David, last one. What sport would you compete in if you went to the Olympics?
Oh, so I would love to do badminton at the Olympics, actually. Some people might expect me to say running event, but
I'm so happy you didn't. I love it.
Yeah, so I've always loved badminton, and I still play in sort of league level. But to be like a Olympic athlete in badminton would be incredible. The speed that they play at is
speed and the
insane.
quads, just being in that squat position and the speed they go around the course. Would you play doubles, singles?
I'm more of a singles player, actually. I enjoy doubles, but there's nothing like a good game of tactical singles.
I love it.
I've got three for you, Jasmine.
Jasmine looks nervous.
Assuming
I'm really bad at these.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
I'm doing an exam.
Assuming oxygen's not a problem, would you rather live in the ocean or on the moon?
In the ocean. In the ocean.
Me too.
Lots more animals and lots more creatures
more
there.
interesting. Yeah. What is the best dish, in your opinion, at least, you can cook?
That I can cook. Well, my other half would probably say some sort of creamy cake, although now there's been a massive reduction in the amount of creamy cakes and baking. I think that I don't know, I'm getting pretty good at making what's oh gosh, I've just forgotten the name. You might have to answer this question again so that I can answer it properly.
I love it. I love that you're like, this is the most amazing.
What are those like when you make like I've just totally forgotten the name. What like it's made with chickpea and you like make fry it in like balls. What's it called?
Falafel or
Falafel. Yeah, I'm good at making it at home now. I do quite a lot of cooking actually. Like we cook quite a lot. So but yeah, I don't know if I could say one specific meal that's my like go, kind of signature dish.
Do you have a good kids vegetarian one? What do your kids love? Are they vegetarian as well? Or?
Yeah, we like, as I say, we mostly eat vegetarian. Like the toddler's brilliant, like he'll eat anything. The almost 5-year-old's currently going through a patch of like doesn't want to eat anything that looks green, but yeah, like to be honest, like shepherd's pie made made with lentils, like that's like pretty good with like potato and like then some vegetables hidden in amongst the lentils. They're pretty good with that sort of stuff. Yeah, so that would be one that's pasta. Like pasta works pretty well with like tomato sauce and veg. Yeah.
Viola does a good green mac and cheese if you want to get your courgettes and green veg in there, smuggle them in. It's very good, that one. Asking for a friend, one top tip for a first-time spine competitor.
Well, I guess my advantage, I think, when I went to the spine was I had a small child, so I was used to not sleeping. So, but I don't. That's probably not the top tip that people want, is to have to get themselves a child before as part of their kind of training. So, I think like I just go back to, actually I think that for all these kind of multi-day long distance things, it's actually quite helpful to spend like time doing like hiking, like long days hiking in the hills. I don't think it's all about running. Like I definitely in my past got really fit for long distance stuff just by hiking. So like go to long days out. I think you kind of protect yourself from injury as well by just spending time on your feet, and actually something like the spine, you'll spend a reasonable amount of time walking anyway. So a good time on your feet. So that would be my tip. Go on a walking holiday with somewhere with a rucksack and enjoy the mountains.
That sounds good. We talked about this probably the past few weeks, Eddie, haven't we? About incorporating hiking into our training. So great tip.
Thank you so much for giving up your very precious time to come on the podcast. I've learnt loads. I know people listening will have learnt loads, and we're going to put all the links. Gary's going to enjoy that, going through the show and finding out all the links. To all the different things that you can read about, educate yourself. But the biggest thing that you can do is to pledge your support to the Green Runners and go and make up your pledges and share them on Facebook. We're going to make sure that Jasmine and David see everyone, like, share and watch. And so, thank you so much. Have a good evening. Good luck with everything Green Runners and everything running related that you've got coming up in the future.
Thanks very much.
Thanks so much.
A pleasure. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye. Well, that was fascinating, Eddie. So much knowledge shared there. That was really great. And I think it's only fair and right that us as podcasters with a voice, we should try and do our bit and make a difference. So both Eddie and I have written our pledges and we'll share them on Instagram, how we move, how we get up and how we eat and how we speak up. Eddie and I are going to join the Green Runners. We're going to share our pillars and hopefully educate and inspire our community too.
We've also got Trish and Russell to sign up as well, and I'll pop that on Facebook as well. So go along there, have a think, listen to the podcast, and if you want to share your pledge on our Facebook page to maybe just prompt you as a bit of motivation, but also to help others to think about their pledge, that would be great. There's no competition or any obligation to do it. It's just our way of supporting the Green Runners and spreading the word.
And no gesture's too small. You know, it all adds up. It all makes a difference.
I think that was the biggest thing, wasn't it? Is that I came away with that. I was always trying to think of like, need to do more, but actually the little gestures they all add up. Gary, go on then, give us your pledges. Maybe we'll do them at the same time.
Well, always, you know, I'm quite mindful of this. I don't feel too guilty with this. I'm rocking some 2018 shoes. I've looked through my kit bag and some tops and stuff that are really, really suitable. But yeah, as always, just try and make it go further. But what I will do, and we chatted with David about it, is on all of I used to track the mileage for my shoes, and that would maybe psychologically prompt me to replace them a bit too early when they had a bit of life left in them. So I'm going to delete that feature, or not delete, just don't enter the mileage targets on. I don't do it on Strava, but I did do it on Garmin. So hopefully that will psychologically at least make me use my shoes for longer. Don't eat. I do eat, you know, I don't eat much meat. So again, that wasn't a big sacrifice to eat less meat or even no meat at all. That's possibly something I should, definitely something I should think about. But 100% don't eat processed meat. I think that is a big, get that kind of mechanical meat out of my diet. That would be good. And also don't buy sports nutritional products that have no recycling policy. We mentioned at the beginning of the show about CHRs giving 1% of the planet, and they also have that facility where you can send your packages back to CHR and they will recycle them on your behalf. Speak out. You know, we've got the podcast, which is such a big voice, so you use that to spread the word and move. This is going to be tough because I really do like London Marathon, but definitely 2022. And
you travel to the London Marathon, your voice there's lots of other things you can do if you still want to go. You make it a weekend trip with the family.
Well, I just feel it a bit personally. This is my own personal opinion. Yeah, you know, if it's a family trip, we do have family in London, so you know we long overdue visit actually to see them, but I'm just a bit uncomfortable about saying about travel, but then I'm on the start line too. So I'll my pledges at least for 2022, 2023 is to just be in the north of England. Where my boundaries for the north. We'll have to wait and see. I was having a chat with Lisa about this, and I think York is probably classed as the north. I wouldn't really.
Look back in history. York is definitely classed as. I think anything. Isn't anything north of London? North.
Yeah, the Watford Gap. Yeah. Hull. These seems like a bit more of a northern line in the sand, and obviously all the way up to the Scottish borders. So yeah, they are my pledges.
Well done, Gary. We're going to, we'll update you, and we're going to have a little shout out from the Green Runners every couple of podcasts of people's pledges, things, anything new that the Green Runners are doing. So we'll keep reminding, we will keep talking about our pledges, because I think as well, your pledges need to evolve. When I was writing mine, I was like, well, I kind of need to evolve these every few months as well, because I'm sure I'll change. So mine, like the biggest thing for the kit wise is what I don't buy a ton of kit trainers. I would admit that I've got a lot of trainers. So I am going to be really mindful that there's no more trainers coming into Eddie's house, and that I do keep the trainers. I do keep all my trainers until they run holes in them. And I know I'll pass them on to my kids, but that can't really be a pledge. What I'm going to do is learn how to sew better. I've still got my sewing kit from when I was at school, when we had to do sewing lessons, still got the little box, but have I ever used it? And I'm really disappointed in myself. And the kids often get holes in their trousers, holes in kit. We do patch coats and stuff because with where we live, they get a bit of but I want to be an example for my children. And I think through clothes and kit, I can definitely do that. Yeah. And go, do we really need that? Do we need to buy that? Do we need 4 pairs of this? What do we actually wear? So really be mindful about kit and kit use, and learn how to sew, and let and teach my children how to sew. And teaching my kids is a big thread through all of my pledges, that everything I'm going to do, I'm going to talk to the kids about as well. Move wise, we are just about to invest in an electric car. It's taken a bit of organisation having an electric car up for the mountain, but it's something we've wanted to. It is an investment. It's really quite expensive to invest in it, to buy the charging point and everything. But it's been something that it's been on my mind, and my husband has to commute, so he has to have a car. And because of where we live, we have to drive up and, I drive up and down our road maybe like 10 times a day, but there is a bus, but not in the interseason. But in the winter season, there is a bus. So I pledge that I'm going to use the bus more when I can and leave the car at home.
What is the French infrastructure like for charging your cars?
It's good.
In England. Yeah.
It's good. Yeah, it's good here. So at the Carrefour, so could easily charge it 3 or 4 places around town. And that's just in Morsey, in a little mountain town. So I think the French are pretty good at every service station and everything. I'm quite excited about that journey into that. And I'm hoping that we'll never go back, and slowly everybody will get electric cars as well. Eating wise, I've been a veggie now for 3 or 4 years, encouraging my family to be more mindful about their meat consumption. I don't want to force it on them, but definitely, like my oldest has said, I'm only going to have beef once a week now, Mum. And so that's just something that we're going to be more mindful about. I cooked it's inspired by Jasmine, a lentil shepherd's pie at the weekend, and we all had that, and nobody died.
No complaints.
I tried oat milk in my tea. Oh,
that's okay.
I'm not
fun.
Anybody have any ideas? So I've cut out every other bit of dairy. I have soya yogurt or coconut yogurt, and depending on what cheese Carrefour decide to stock, vegetable cheese. But the milk in the tea is not. I can't. The oat milk, I prefer to have it black. But
I'm sure I used to buy soy milk years ago. And had a bit, I think, apple in it to make it a bit sweeter.
It turns it. So I'm going to continue working on my dairy consumption, and it's a daily process. And I think that goes through all my pledge. And I think that's really important for everyone to know, is that this is not going to be perfect, but I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to be really mindful, and every day just keep reminding myself of this is what I'm going to try, little changes. And just like you, Gary, speak out, I'm going to use the podcast as a platform. I'm going to use my spine race as a platform as well. I'm going to sew my Green Runners badge on my kit bag with pride. I have some ideas about how I'm going to handle my spine race, what I'm going to do with the kit, etc. But I'm going to go into that at another time, but it's something that I'm thinking about. And I think that's the biggest thing that if you could take away from this podcast today, is just start to think.
Even if people don't particularly feel they want to join the Green Runners, but they do a couple of those pledges themselves in their own daily lives. I think it's all positive.
Keep it simple. As we all know from training plans, simplicity is best. Keep it simple.
Yeah.
As I said at the start, we'll share over on Facebook our pledges and on Instagram. And if you'd like to share either our pledges or share your own pledges, we'd love to see them. And thank you so much to David and Jasmine for coming on the podcast.
Gave up a lot of time that evening. It was really kind of them.
Really good, wasn't it? It was really good. Tell you who else is really good running up hills. It's Trish.
Smooth.
Here we are. Is Trish? She's popped over onto the podcast. Let us know what she's been up to in training. Wise words coming from Trish.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Trish's triumphs and tribulations of training. And yes, if you can say all of that without getting tongue twisted, you get a gold star. So well done, you. So what am I up to today? Well, I've already done a course session this morning and dropped the kids off at school. Woohoo, well done me. Pat on the back, they got there with everything, I think, that they need. We'll find out at the end of the day. And now I am on my way to do my hill day. So once a week I try and pack in an elevation day. And because I live in a flat area, I've got to drive to get there. And it's annoying because I'd rather not drive, just you know, because I want to save polar bears and all that good stuff. But it's a bit of a necessity because I just can't get the elevation in where I live, so I kind of have to bite the bullet a little bit and get on with it. So I try and pack it into a couple of days a week. One at this hill I'm going to now, and another one at the weekend. I do a lot of weekend training on hills. So this hill, I'm driving to it, and I always feel a little bit of just not really feeling the hill, if I'm totally honest, on an early morning, because it's quite hard, isn't it? Like getting out and doing a hill session, especially when you drive there and you've got it all building. And I could see this hill certainly as my pain cave, because it is a painful hill, and it's a painful session. I do it wind, rain, sun, whatever. I don't listen to any music when I train either, so it's just me and my thoughts, whoop, whoop, which is fun. So basically, I don't, because I'm so rubbish at talking to myself, I basically don't say anything to myself during the entire time of the training session. So it's just silence, basically, silence in my head, other than the odd Disney movie that comes in, the Disney theme tune. I did have Encanto in my head for a long time, which was quite fun. But yeah, so occasionally that will pop in, and that keeps me on my toes. But other than that, there's just silence. Now I could frame this hill as, you know, misery and you know, something that I don't particularly enjoy, but you know, I think it's really important to get to a place where you find your training positive, regardless of what it is you're doing, to find the positivity in it. And that for me, when I look at this hill, you know, again, I could see pain cave and misery, but I try and remember actually what it feels like to get to the top. You know, that joy of getting to the top and just knowing that you're high above ground and you're looking down at stuff. Not that I like to look down on things, but you know, on a hill, you know, how can you not? Look at the view, and just that realization that you've got to the top when you weren't sure that you were gonna, but just getting there and feeling good about it. And I think about other things as well, like, you know, just the absolute thrill of the descent, how it feels when you run down a hill after getting to the top. Now, granted, when you've done that a good few times, the appeal is slightly lost. But it's still there, and I think that staying in that moment every single time, every ascent and every descent, finding that joy in those two things, getting to the top and the thrill of the descent, getting to the top and the thrill of the descent, and knowing you can do that hill. I think, you know, we have to do hills when we're training, because it does help build, it does form such an important part of our training physically, you know, particularly for the races that I'm doing, like the Arc of Attrition in January, and having a good foundation in terms of hill work is really crucial in terms of building that resilience in the quads and the legs, and that strength and conditioning to handle those just constant up and downs. But I think also you've got to remember, like, life has a good few hills chucked in it itself, and you've got to get through those, you know. And the mental training that this type of hill session does for you, that's where the real resilience is built in you as an athlete, and not just as an athlete, but as a person. We're all going to have to do a hill at some point in our life, whether we like it or not. We will all have a hill to climb. So how we approach that and how we frame it is really important to getting through it, understanding that it's going to be over, that we will get to the top eventually. But you've got to commit to that hill. You've got to commit to the session. You've got to commit to getting up and over the top and coming down on the other side. That's where you get it. That's where you get the good work done, the good payback from the session and the commitment. when I think about all of the some of the hills I've had to get through over the years, you know, in terms of life and stuff, and I tend to think, actually, you know, a bit of suffering is really important for you as an individual. It's important to suffer because it teaches you a lot about yourself. It teaches you how to endure, but it also gives you perspective. You know, the ability to see that actually things aren't too bad when you're cold and you're wet and you really hate this moment in time, or you're really low, or you're in a dark place and, you know, crap things have happened. It's really important to go back and, through experience, understand that you've done hard things and that you can do these things as well. You can do hard things and get through it. Hills teach us that it's important to be comfortable being uncomfortable. So the next time you go and do a hill, remember that. Remember, when you're getting up there, being comfortable, uncomfortable is key to not just enduring that hill session, but enduring life as well. Building up that resilience through that hill session is not just building you up physically, it's building the resilience that you need to get on with whatever hill you're climbing in your life right now. It's going to let you know that you can get on with it and you can get it done. So that's enough from me. I need to get on and do my own hill. Up, 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 all in.
Well, I enjoyed that. I hope our listeners did too. It's a new addition to the show.
It made me a bit emotional at the end when she was like, you do, I don't know why. I was like, oh, we're all there, you know, working our little socks off, contemplating our own hills, getting up a hill every day.
Yeah.
Metaphoric or physical.
And it was nice, just a different voice, I suppose. Different opinion, different approach, different voice. I really enjoyed that. Upcoming races. I think now we've been doing this for so long, Eddie. We repeat races, obviously, that we were talking about last year.
No way, you actually remembering we've repeated races.
Yeah.
I have a wealth of knowledge of races from doing this for so long. If clients are like, do you know a race in so-and-so? And I can go, oh, yes, I do actually. There is the Wizened Witch's Nose, Chester, 11-mile trail.
It is good. You retain information more than me.
You find the most eclectic races, but I have heard of this one.
Thank goodness for SI entries. That's all I can say. But the Gower Ultra 50, well, it's part of the series actually, but it's a complete circumnavigation of the stunning Gower Peninsula. I've never been there. Britain's first area of outstanding natural beauty. That just sounds amazing. But they have the Gower Ultra back 34 miles and the Gower Ultra Trail Race 23 miles, taking the latter part of the 50-mile route, all three taking a variety of trains and are well marked with Welsh coastal path signs, and where the route leaves the path with directional arrows and flags to make it easy for you to navigate your adventure. I hope it is easy now, Eddie. I've been a race director and I've put some pretty large visible yellow arrows out on the course, and I've still seen people run straight past them. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, when it said, when you read well marked with the Welsh coastal path signs, I know like those little acorns that are like buried in bramble bushes that you can't see when you've got blood coming out your eyeballs.
So anyway. hopefully nobody has any nav issues.
Bit further down south, we've got the Beachy Head Marathon. You'd love this, Gary. 26.2 miles with 3,711 feet of elevation. It's a southeast classic. This year I see now they've introduced an Ultra 2 because they run a 10K too, and so they've put it all together and you can do the Ultra 2. I did this many years ago. I think I only had 2 children, so it's over 9 years ago. It goes straight up out of Eastbourne, up this really, really steep climb. Literally, your start is at the bottom and you're looking up at this like vertical climb up Lactate Hell. And then it finishes, you come in over the Seven Sisters.
Yeah.
7 bitches, as we call them, that are literally like they go up and down, up and down. And you can see the lighthouse at the end, but you've still got about 8 miles and a lot of climbing to do. At the end, it's all about pacing and it's all about nutrition. I remember when I did it, I saw my mate at the beginning of the Seven Sisters, and he handed me a packet of Cliff Shots because I was bonking so bad, and they saved me. I think I'd still be out there crawling up and down. Sisters. It's a great marathon. It's always really fast, even though it's really hilly. The terrain is runnable. There's really good runnable sections as well as the hills, as long as you keep fueling. And I'd be interested to know what the ultra's like. I wonder if they do the 10K first or they do it at the end. Okay. Geez, that would be hard. Then you've got to run 10K when you can see the finish. But yeah, good luck to anybody doing it. If you're looking for an October trail marathon, this one has been it's been going for a good 20 years. I think it's a really good one. Maybe have a think about it for next year.
So you're Zwifting tonight, Eddie?
Tonight, last Swift race of this series. Let's see if Eddie can be last again tonight. Bring it rear like I was doing.
Our Zwift chat has gone to another level this year.
I'm sorry, it'll be quiet the next couple of weeks.
I like it.
I managed to balance it with it's the highlight of my week, Gary. It's the most social interaction I have with these computer screen of the week. I might have a rest. I might have a total rest day because I'm going to be absolutely shattered tomorrow after a late night, and then Wednesdays are full on with the kids' taxi service. So I might.
That's when you rebuild, wasn't it? Your rest.
Yeah, I might just have a shower, put on the old jeans, and spend the day in the car with a flask of tea and a lot of snacks. And just get through it. Might be one of those days. Going to see how I feel, and I'm gonna have to do my long run on Thursday as well. So I don't like to do the long run absolutely knackered. Otherwise, it's such a sufferfest. And it's another 4 hours. But I'm going to enjoy it. It's a sunny day, and it's going to be my last long run because then on Friday, the kids have a 2-week half term. Do English kids have 2-week half term? When did this?
Pretty sure it's only 1 week, unless for a nasty surprise.
Did you not feel that they've only just, the summer holidays was like
it wasn't that long ago.
Long, and now they need 2 weeks off. I mean, they are pretty tired. I'm pretty tired. They do need a week would be long enough. But let's face it, 2 weeks isn't long enough because they have to go skiing, they have to go football, they have to go to gym club, they have to do everything else. And yeah, they do deserve maybe a little bit of time at home. I'm only grumpy because I have to look after my own children. And I also have to, non-running or Swift related, end of this week, I'm going into the kids' school to teach the French kids how to Scottish dance.
It's quite random. I wasn't expecting that.
Gary looks so unimpressed. He's like, I thought you'd be like, oh, Eddie, Bryn's going to put his kilt on. Bryn has got Scottish roots very close to his family. Bryn's going to put his kilt on, and we're going to go and teach them. If you're Scottish or you know how Scottish will, we're going to teach the Duke of Perth, I think we were going to teach. God, I better look that up. Yeah. Because they have this week at school, they're doing an English week. And so the English parents are asked to come in.
It's not very English, was it? A Scottish dance.
That's what my sister said as well. I was like, English language week,
Okay.
English language week. So they're having a thread of English language throughout the week, and the English parents are asked to go in and teach something. Normally I teach cricket, and we have this cricket set, but the kids, and you go in and you teach your own kids' class, but my kids are so big and strong now, and the playground is not big. I'm scared of that cricket bat and the balls now for the oldest. I'm like, Rory, you'd knock my eye out if I bowled you. So I'm like, well, what can we do? And I was like, I know, this would be hilarious to get all the French kids doing these Scottish.
In your element, Eddie.
I'm going to be in my element. And also just get Bryn in his kilt, it's enjoyable for all. So we're going to go in and we're teaching it at the end of the day. So all the parents will come and pick up the kids, and we're going to be in the playground going, hilarious. Going to be the highlight of the year probably at that school.
Yeah, the talking point.
Talking point. Rest of the week as per normal, and then, as I said, the Colonel Sutton wagon is going to be arriving at the weekend, ready to resupply hopefully charge bars. And it also means I have to clean because we don't get visitors very often here. The spare room, your spare room, our spare room is full of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to. open the door and put it all in the attic.
Yeah. Oh goodness me! Someone knocks on the door and I have to let them in. It's like, oh shit.
I'm going to need a day. I haven't even, I'm like, I can't remember last time I mopped the floors. Not that my parents mind, but you don't want them. It's like, you want them to be slightly clean. So that'll be the highlight. I'll tell you all about the visit next podcast. What about you?
Well, I'm going to give myself a day off, but
Good.
not for different reasons.
Yeah.
I honestly, I could probably go on. You see these people who do run streaks. No, I'm so pleased I'm not one of those guys. You know, they're very dedicated people, but the thought of going out for, say, a 3-mile run today, I think a lot of people have those 3-mile 5K limits for their run streak. I just do not fancy it all today. So I'm going to give myself a day off. I just think it would wipe me out. If I went out the house for a run, it would proper wipe me out and set me back, and maybe fingers crossed I can get out tomorrow instead. So give it a full day off today, and probably 3 o'clock I will be going upstairs to bed. I really need to be fit and well. We're planning a bit. There's a large group. We was talking about car sharing with the Green Runners. There's a large group who was going to the lakes for another 2 to Helvell and Recce. So I do not want to miss that. So yeah, I don't want to be poorly. I don't want to extend this illness any longer than it needs to. I'm improving. I'm not. Like last night, my goodness, like I said, I was like in fetal position, shivering, but sweating on the bed.
A terrible case of man flu.
Yeah, it wasn't very good at all. So I've improved from that. So I think I'll be okay. I think it's a bug. I don't think I'm like poorly. I think it's a bug.
You're going to be okay. Right. Well, that was episode 112. Could be the last one. Thanks for listening, everyone. And thank you to Cheercharge for continuing to support the show. Sending bars to Colonel Sutton and all the guest competition winners, and hopefully keeping us all fueled in our adventures and generally being an all-round super support to everybody out on the trails. I'm Eddie Sutton.
And I'm Gary Thwaites.
And let's run to the hills.